Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and I am here with the creator and star of Difficult People. She was a producer on Billy on the Street. She was at the forefront of the comedy podcast game. I want to really discuss the origins of how was your weekend, how you feel about how podcasting has evolved. Hi, Julie Klausner.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm delighted to be here.
You came, so you just told me you came here straight
Yes.
from seeing the Liza doc for a second time.
Well, I'm not straight. I can't say that I came here straight. That would be unfair. I don't think you can leave the Liza doc in that condition.
You left a little bit gayer.
It's such a great documentary. It was the second time I'd seen it, and I came directly from IFC. So it was a pleasure to see it with an organic audience. The first time I'd seen it was at the Tribeca Film Festival. As
we were both there the same night.
Yeah, which was exhilarating. So it was wonderful to see it with a different crowd. And
what were the demographics tonight? The crowd
all over the place. I mean, I think mostly like middle-aged, but pretty diverse otherwise, like gender all across the spectrum. And I loved hearing people laugh at the right parts and react the way they did emotionally, and it was just a pleasure for me to revisit it. And so I think it's such a wonderful, wonderful documentary. And that footage still just kills me.
Oh yeah,
I mean, they could have just Diana, right? Like that could just to have released that footage for Liza fans was such a blessing, and then to have the brilliant structure around her story was also just such a great gift. It's such a great piece. On my
to-do list, actually within the next week or so, I have a date with a friend I have never seen. Is it Stepping Out where she plays?
Oh, Stepping Out's great. You're going to love it.
With Jane Krakowski.
Yeah, and Andrea Martin. It's wonderful. It's a lot of fun.
My friend just saw it, I think, for the first time.
It's terrific. You're going to love it.
I'm psyched for that.
It's fantastic.
And then
she's so good in it.
Final bit of Liza Judy housekeeping with you is, so I'm a bit on a Judy journey, teach me everything about Judy so I can, I'm a fan obviously, but I'm very, very rudimentary in my
scholarship. I mean, even there's always more to learn, but I think we're all kind of on a journey with it.
So here's my question for you. Have you seen the 1990 TV movie starring Judy Davis?
With Judy Davis? Yeah. That's the seminal, I think, portrayal of Judy. I think Judy Davis was kind of the person to have done her justice. I think it's kind of I don't want to say agreed upon. I don't know if I can speak for people, but I definitely consider it as such.
So how I was introduced to this, this was back over Christmas. I happen to love this Christmas movie starring Dennis Leary and Judy Davis called The Ref.
Yes, The Ref. Nora Ephron, right?
No, not
that was the other one. That was Mixed Nuts.
What a reference. I don't remember who, it's escaping me who the writer
I know The Ref, yeah.
He plays a burglar. It's very funny.
Yes.
And the friend who I was showing it to was like, okay, if you like this, you need to watch the TV movie where Judy Davis, because it was within the same 5-year period that she did both of those movies, and she's giving you a lot of Judy in The Ref.
She was brilliant. That was Ted Demme who directed it.
Yes, Ted Demme. May he rest.
Judy Davis had an incredible run. She was also amazing in Husbands and Wives, and she was incredible in Barton Fink. I love Judy Davis. I think she is magnificent.
So I mentioned up top some of the things that you are most known for.
Yes.
But we're actually going to start here.
Anywhere you want to start, I will go.
So I know on this year's Spotify Wrapped.
Yes.
The track More.
Yes.
Off of I'm Breathless, music inspired by and from the film Dick Tracy.
Yes.
Was your most streamed track.
Yes, I listened to Madonna singing more times than any other song this year.
What does More off of the Dick Tracy soundtrack, I'm Breathless, what does it do for you?
Well, it's an incredible merging of two unlikely superstars, which is Stephen Sondheim and Madonna.
I got rhythm, music too, just as much as before. Got my guy.
Madonna is working harder it's interesting to think of it in terms of the Liza Minnelli conversation we're having, because Liza Minnelli is probably one of the most hardest working performers. And I think that's part of what makes one of the many things that makes her so lovable is there's so much sweat and energy that goes into everything she does. Madonna has always been, historically, like, her work ethic is athletic, but in this one you can really see the sweat and you could hear the vulnerability, because Sondheim's famously impossible to sing. Madonna is, self-aware enough to know that her singing ability is not the most impressive when it compares to her, for instance, her dancing ability or her aesthetic when it came to overseeing what a music video should be or what her look should be and all these other things that she's historically so good at. So I think Madonna coming into that project with fear and also just really, really hungry to impress someone as brilliant as Stephen Sondheim, combined with Stephen Sondheim just having a blast writing this pastiche song, is a convergence that is just the best of both worlds for me. And plus the nostalgia of having been the age I was when it came out. I really was able to lend a fresh ear to something that had always sort of been in the back of my mind. I'd also come across a TikTok video. I wish I could remember the name of the performer. I'll find it later. But someone else covering it in, I don't know if it was Putting It Together or one of the later reviews. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, that song is so interesting when someone else performs it. But then, of course, you sort of prefer the original because it's sort of how you got the notion of the thing in the first place. So as I listened to it over and over and over and over and over and over again last year, I just realized all of these complexities that it has that I'm sure Madonna had to grapple with. But there's just so many bridges. There's so much modulation. There's that tricky little thing at the end when you're supposed to rhyme something with love and then you don't. Like all the Sondheim puzzle stuff is hidden in there. But more than anything else, it's an opportunity to enjoy Madonna working her hardest and I think singing her best on top of just like a wonderful Sondheim morsel that is looking to alienate no one. It's all about bringing people in.
Do you listen to the rest of the soundtrack, or are you familiar with the rest of
I do
the
listen
album?
to, I know I'm Breathless by heart.
This is going to be very unpopular. I listen to I'm Breathless way more than I listen to like Ray of Light.
Oh yes, definitely. Ray of Light's an excellent album, but I thought you were going to say, Like a Prayer, which would have been I think people would have been more upset about that. But when I say people, I really don't know what I'm talking about. I'm trying not to speak for like masses of people. I'm trying to speak to masses of people like Evita. But I'm Breathless. There's only one song I skipped. Do you want to get? I want you to guess.
Oh, I'm gonna guess.
It's not what you'd think.
Is it Now That I'm Following You?
No, I like both of those. When they say when Warren Beatty sings as though there is a gun to his head is one of the funniest things in pop culture history.
Okay, is the one that you think I'm gonna guess Vogue?
No.
Oh shit. Okay, I'm gonna guess. I'm doing this blind, by the way.
It's okay. You can look at it if you want. So here's the listing, but it might. No, I'm not going to show you. Okay, I'm not going to show you the listing because
I hope
you're
it's none
going
of my
to see that that it's not checked in the download department.
Damn, I guess my final guess.
Okay, here. Oh no, you're going to know.
Is going to be.
It's a ballad. It's Something to Remember.
That's
the one I skipped.
That is a crime.
I don't care. Then call me a criminal. Then throw me in jail, because I'll tell you this: the momentum of He's a Man, sooner or later, hanky panky into I'm Going Bananas and Crybaby is just like, it just goes to a screeching halt to that ballad. I think you just go right from Crybaby to Back in Business. More, the ballad to me is What Can You Lose?
So where do you place Something to Remember?
I just skip it. I don't like it. It's not my favorite of her ballads.
Do you know the Something to Remember album, the compilation album?
What's on that? Let me see. What's on that?
I'll Remember.
Okay.
From the With Honor soundtrack.
Okay.
That was the single.
Okay.
This used to be my playground.
Okay.
Compilation of all her ballads.
Yeah. So, oh boy, that's interesting. That's something. That's something else. Let me look this up. Oh, so this, yes. Well, of course, it has that photo of her, like, it has her, doing
Serious, yes.
doing the perpendicular, like look at my upper arm and forearm, and like I'm wearing this slip. Okay, so it starts with "I want you, I'll remember, we'll take vows." That's how she got the role. That's how they showed.
Girl, do you think I was...
Okay, Sorry, I didn't mean to Madonna explain. I'm sorry. I think I was talking to the people listening. You'll see crazy. This used to be my playground. Live to tell. Love don't live here anymore. Something to remember. Forbidden love. Okay.
Her cover.
I like Rain. Oh, Father's on here? Interesting.
Her cover of I Want You.
Oh, Father is a ballad. I guess it is, but it's just different kind of ballad. There's lots of storytelling.
Do you know her cover of I Want You?
I don't know if I do.
Hit play.
Okay. If I put my phone down, I acted too fast.
Just listen to a few bars of this.
Yeah. So wait, this is the cover of I Want You. Now, this was originally sung by...
Oh, well, it's a Marvin Gaye cover.
Who's producing? Is this like Chemical Brothers?
Oh, it's Massive Attack. I'm an idiot. Massive Attack.
This is tasty. This is great. I love it. I'll have to, you know what? I'm going to listen to this ballad compilation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny that it's called like the one song that I skip on I'm Breathless.
That's why I brought it to your attention.
Being very vulnerable, admitting this. I don't feel good or bad about it. I'm just being honest.
Now, we're recording this at my apartment.
Yes.
And I actually wish we had asked to do it at yours because...
It's good for me to get out of my apartment.
Is it?
Yeah. It's healthy. I'm told it's healthy. Yes. No, it's good for me. Yeah.
The reason I say that is because a hobby of mine, pastime of mine, is watching the Architectural Digest YouTube videos of celebrities.
I've seen those. They're crazy. Yeah.
They're so good.
Sure, they're fun. Where they open the door and talk right to the camera.
And I came across your apartment therapy tour.
Oh, yeah. The article I did. Sure. That was
and
great.
There's a whole photo spread. And I literally thought, I fucked up here and saying that you should come to me.
There's a mural. Instead of the Color Me Beautiful mural, now that's a Divine mural. Now that's like where that was. Because I needed more black and white. And that was like a little too pastel. So it's changed a bit. But it's still pretty much the same as how it looks.
So before, when you came in here, you were talking about your apartment and how it has just been it was rent stabilized, and now it has become destabilized.
Yes, as has my mood. Yes, in regards to that.
This is Eric Adams' fault?
Actually, I think it has something. He doesn't have nothing to do with it because I did look into it, but apparently, when a building reaches a certain age. It's just sort of what happened.
Okay, wait. How did you find out your apartment was being destabilized?
I got an email and then I did some research and they proposed like a new amount I'd pay a month and I had a heart attack.
What is the differential?
I can't talk about it. It's going to be too upsetting. It's better that we talk about things that are less upsetting, like Warren Beatty, like with a gun to his head being forced to be like, let's dance. We could do a little two-step.
Well, then let's go back to the apartment therapy tour.
Sure.
So this is what really wowed me in that article.
Yes.
It's so custom.
Yes.
That I would, of course, assume that you own this apartment.
No, I don't own it. I rent it. It's going to be a pain in the ass to move. Yeah.
Are you going to move?
I hope I can afford it. It's really challenging to like.
How long have you been in this apartment?
Only like 4 or 5 years. When did COVID start? Like 4 or 5 years ago?
2020.
Yeah, so I moved there like mid-COVID.
Where were you previously?
I was in Nolita before, and there was like there were crazy deals during COVID in New York City.
Was your previous apartment as like decked out and
yes. So I work with my friend Stephen Hamill, who's a very, very gifted painter, artist, and he is absolutely brilliant, and he's helped me with my apartment as like a project, and we collaborate, and
I love the wallpaper in the bathroom and in the kitchen.
Thank you.
The paint is like goes up the walls.
Yeah, so that was all his vision, was the paint. The wallpaper, he encouraged me to make myself, which I did, which I made out of collaged old cookbooks from the 50s and 60s of like cakes and pies. So I made a collage and was able to send it off to this place. What is it called? Spoonflower or something like that. And then put the custom wallpaper in the kitchen. The one in the bathroom is a little bit more like kind of Dorothy Draper palm sort of themed. But yeah, it was a big endeavor, and I spent a lot of time at home, so it had to be very comfortable.
You describe your aesthetic as cult.
Yes, cult instead of campy. Cult, to me, I grew up with the word cult. It always meant something that had a little bit of like it had more contrast. It had more shadows to it. Like it was either a word that referred to a list of movies that were all interesting, but some I was too scared to see, or it referred to a fringe, or it referred to something like pentagrams and the Satanic Panic. And so the word cult to me was always a very kind of like sexy, exciting version of subculture. I like camp too, but I always like, salt on my caramel. Like I think it's important when you're doing bold things color-wise to just make sure that you're also presenting a contrast at the same time. So a lot of black is always good. Just sort of makes the more colorful stuff pop. And also black and white is I'll never get tired of black and white. The graphicness of that has always been exhilarating to me.
Like based on the photos, it's so maximalist. Mm-hmm. Like I love it, but it's not like, do you have a more is more frame of mind in general?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, more is more, I think, also refers to a certain emotional state. Like if you have more to give, then you have more to show. And also just vaudeville, like doing things that can be seen from the other side of the stage or the other side of the auditorium. So yeah, maximalism is intriguing to me, but I also am very design oriented. So I like to, I'm not crazy about clutter. Clutter can be cozy, but I try to pare things back as much as possible, because I do know the power of simplicity as well. So I'm just constantly trying to balance.
I love that.
Thank you.
In the like, everyone has to check out the Apartment Therapy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do any of the Architectural Digest YouTube videos, like, do you remember? Like, do you have any? I actually want to do an episode of this show where all I do is talk with a guest.
That's
like
really fun idea.
A friend of mine is an interior designer, and we once did that.
And by the way, Steven is an interior designer. He's not just like like an amateur. He's a professional. Yeah.
I once did this episode. My friend Dale Saylor is an interior designer. And he has a bit of a background in architecture as well.
Yes.
And we went through, this was like 3-4 years ago at this point.
Yes.
We not attacked, meaning like we went through all of the seminal housewives homes.
Oh, interesting.
And he was able to talk in detail about all the window treatments, the interior, the closets, and everything from Tara Radswell's apartment on King Street.
Oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah, she's got great taste. I like her place a lot.
So I want to do that.
Her place is like sort of like a Parisian kind of pied-à-terre, not pied-à-terre, but like a loft. Like she's kind of got the space that it was very Parisian to me. Like in other words, Parisians like always go out to meet their friends and then they go back to their flats, and she's got that duplex, and her place is fabulous.
What were you doing in her apartment?
I was interviewing her for How Was Your Week back in the day.
Oh my God.
I had read her book and went over, and she was lovely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's great. Smart, impressive lady.
A recent episode of Architectural Digest on YouTube. Watch the Gloria Steinem episode.
Oh, interesting.
It's new.
Upper West or Upper East?
Upper East.
Okay.
And It
Interesting.
really
Yeah, I'm
surprised
curious.
me.
I'm curious. Yeah.
One of the most beautiful, comfortable, eccentric homes in
Sure.
a positive way
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
I can't wait. I will definitely check it out. I remember the Naomi Campbell one, and I know the RuPaul one. I know he likes orange.
Oh, so you were just talking about cult versus camp?
Yes.
So you just did an episode of How Was Your Week that I loved, which was the John Waters quote tournament, where you basically do like a sports bracket
yeah.
to determine the best John Waters quote.
Of all time. It was so fun. That was such a funny idea that I'd come up with in collaboration with Peaches Christ. And we thought it would be so funny to apply sports terminology to quantify the oeuvre of the man who, in his own words, has never been to a sporting event in his life.
Can I announce
Sure,
the winners?
absolutely.
So the two winners were Let's Dance.
Well, those were the two, like, that was like the last, it was like, if this was a Super Bowl, right? Like, those were the two teams playing, would be these two contenders.
Oh, so correct. So it was Let's Dance.
From Ricky Lake at the end of Hairspray, Tracy Turnblad says.
Oh, it's
to
Ricky Lake.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wait, paint the picture. of
Oh,
the
it's
end when
it's the last line of the movie.
Let's Dance.
Yeah.
Versus there's just two kinds of people, my kind of people and assholes.
Yes, from Pink Flamingos.
From Pink Flamingos.
And that's a Mink Stoll quote. Mink, there's the majority of the bracket we learned as we went were really dominated by Mink Stoll. I mean, there was a lot of Divine obviously represented as well, but Mink Stoll, I mean, her delivery of his dialogue is like nothing else.
My favorite John Waters quote, I think, would be "Children would get in the way of our erotic
lifestyle." Another Mink classic. I mean, the two of them, when John and Mink are together, like, it's so beautiful. They have this like incredible friendship that spans over decades, and they just know each other so well. And so when he writes for her, like, she's such a masterful actor. Like, she just brings life to his dialogue in a way that is so inspiring as a, muse to writer, collaborators, friends. I'm so moved by their relationship, frankly.
I did an episode a few years ago with Peaches Christ all about the movie Showgirls.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And Peaches said, when I was like, what was your entry to Showgirls? And she talked about how she was in college and John Waters literally came to the school for some talk.
Yeah.
And John Waters himself said, you must go see this thing.
Yeah.
And it was Showgirls.
Wow, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, the timing wise, that makes sense because Peach is around my age, and like when that came out, it wasn't. We needed people like John to tell us it was cult before everybody else knew it was cult.
Yeah. So how was your week? So this is actually very thrilling because How Was Your Week was one of the first comedy. What other comedy podcasts?
WTF was around, and
Mark Maron.
Yeah, I mean, I started it in 2011.
Yes.
So there weren't a lot of other podcasts. I wasn't quite sure what to do or how to start a podcast. Or
was it because
Yeah.
you were a fan of Mark Maron's?
I did like Mark Maron's podcast a lot, and I listened to it, and it was very helpful for me to kind of get myself psyched up when I was figuring out what it could be. And I was very inspired by the monologue to interview structure. The other big one to me was The Best Show at the time, which was at WFMU. It was a radio show that, became a podcast the next day. That's with Tom Sharpling, and he would do a lot of call-ins. And then I had to figure out a way to broadcast solo, and I was not a stand-up. So I gave myself the structure of talking through my week, and that was my point of departure. And I was very, very ambitious those years of the early podcast. I had like 2 guests on, and that's insane. It was more like a talk show, like a traditional late night talk show, than it was a podcast. I mean, now if I can get one guest, like, I consider myself, deserving of a nap and a snack and a week off. So
I feel the same way. It's so interesting how during COVID, it was so easy to book guests, and even pre-COVID. But now it's really because there is such the saturation of podcasts that people are sick of like telling their story. Like, everybody is like guesting on so many shows that it's no longer a novelty even for the guests. So therefore, it is harder to get guests. But it's interesting to me because so many people cite, I think there was a big surge of podcasts around 2016.
Okay.
And so many people were like, yeah, like back when people didn't even know what a podcast.
Sure.
Let me tell you something. I've been listening to podcasts since it's called a podcast because you listened on your iPod.
I remember, yeah.
And I used to download MP3s of these two dykes talking about the L word.
Yes.
That in like, I don't even know where they were living, and they would recap the shows before recaps really were a thing.
Yeah.
And they would talk about their lives. I think they were a couple. And that was the first quote unquote podcast that I listened to. And this had to be 2008.
Wow.
2007, 2008.
Yeah.
Because it went off the air in 2009. So it was before these people.
Oh, so they were still airing. They were doing it live. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty
They
impressive.
were doing it live.
Good for them.
The first run of the show.
Yeah.
And so that's why I so admire the fact that you were so ahead of the curve in 2011. Like that's still so early.
Yeah. Yeah. One of these days I'm going to hit like the being of my time thing, and then I'm going to really make money. Can't wait.
So I assume you stopped because you got difficult people.
Yes, I had a TV show for like 3 years, so that would made it hard to do a
Legendary
weekly
show. And now you returned this past Halloween, and
Yes.
now How Is Your Week is back. But
How Is Your Week is back. We're back.
how is it? What is the biggest difference? So I want to go back to when your first run.
Yeah.
How was it? Just the technology wise.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm assuming were all interviews done in person.
More or less, yes, they were done in person. I'm trying to think of any that weren't. No, they were all done in person, and then now I know how to record from Zoom, so that makes it a lot easier.
Well, back then, I remember before Zoom was I was doing some remote interviews over Skype. That's how we would do it.
Yeah, I don't think I used Skype. I think I would go to people's houses or have them come over to mine.
And one of your first guests on How Was Your Week was Joan Rivers.
Yes.
Because you were a joke writer
Yes.
I
wrote for her a couple times. She had a couple of reality shows that she called me in on, and I got to know her from writing for her. I would hang out with her on set, and that was a real privilege, to say the least.
How were you introduced to Joan?
How was I introduced to Joan? Well, originally I was called in to meet with her because she was talking to VH1 about doing a podcast. She had heard about podcasts and she wanted to do one. So I met her, and I was incredibly excited to have met her. And then later I met her niece, Caroline. So Caroline knew I was a comedy writer. She'd worked in the comedy world as well, in the television world.
What was I want to know what was most surprising about Joan, and also what was the biggest thing that you took away, or like a thing that you observed that you gleaned from that time that like is still like prescient within you?
There's so much that is prescient within me in my limited time with her. The thing that it's hard to say surprising as much as just one of the first things I noticed and realized about her was when I met her, I felt instantly comfortable. I felt like she was like a relative, like an aunt. I felt like she was such a warm, kind, accessible, knowable person. Even though I was looking into the eyes of someone that was like a superstar, I felt comfortable around her instantly. And I credit all of that to her, because I'm not someone that feels comfortable around people a lot. I'm not someone that likes going to parties and like feels comfortable with myself and is happy, like fine talking to anyone. Like I'm not like that at all. I'm socially anxious, or I'll have like there's not a lot of people I can like vibe with necessarily. So feeling instantly comfortable around this person was really a total credit to her, making me feel welcome. And her warmth was just so tangible instantly. The thing I'll never forget, besides having had the privilege to accompany her to her first appearance on Letterman for years, because she had not been back at Letterman since Edgar had died, and she wanted to bring Edgar's ashes and like smear it under the desk. And I was quizzing her on her jokes backstage and making sure she had like everything ready to go, memorized and everything. I got to ride in the limo with her and hang out with her backstage and watch her go and kill and come back. And that whole experience was just a surreal out of body experience. And having asked her, like, we were going to Ed Sullivan's theater. And so she told me about the time she was booked on Ed Sullivan. Like there was just so many surreal moments from that day. But the thing I probably like keep closest to my heart as far as being inspired by it is, you know, when you're writing for someone who's doing a reality show and you're just kind of like pitching them jokes and you sort of stand off to the side. I remember pitching her something, and whether or not she used it, which I really don't even remember, she just made a point of like saying to me, like, that's really good. And then going off to, you know, just continuing to do what she was doing. But like just making sure that the writer had that compliment was not something you see, or when you see it, you appreciate it. And coming from her, that was very, very meaningful.
That booking on Letterman, was that the booking where she kept nudging the producer with the DVD of Billy Eichner's sketches?
Yeah. So that morning I was with her when she was doing hair and makeup, and she was on speaker with the producer and they were talking about what she was going to say on the show. And she said, I'm going to bring a DVD with me. It's of this young man, Billy Eichner, and he's really funny and you should book him, because she was a big fan of Billy's and she was an advocate of his. And so she used her opportunity, having, you know, this incredible return to Letterman, to put young talent forward as well.
That to me says everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, she had really good taste and she was really smart and she knew who was funny and who wasn't. And she was never afraid to say either thing. She was sharper than any tack. Like I remain to this day in awe of her.
So I know that you were at UCB. Mm-hmm. How were you first introduced to Billy Eichner?
I actually had an ex introduce me to Billy's videos because he used to go see him at Ars Nova. And he turned me on to his Man on the Street videos, and I saw them and I was blown away. I'd never seen anyone like him. I thought he was so original and so funny, and I really, really loved what he was doing. So I sent him like a fan letter, and he was familiar with my work, and so we kind of established this like mutual admiration society and decided to get together and talk about something that maybe we could collaborate on. And we had coffee and we kind of talked about different show ideas, and maybe we'll write something, and maybe we'll write something for Bridget Everett because she's a friend of both of ours. And we went our separate ways, and then he got Billy on the Street happening. And so he called me and said, I just sold the show. Will you write for it? And I said, of course. And then we really got to know each other as I worked on Billy on the Street, so that when I wrote the pilot for Difficult People, I said to him, I have this idea for a show and you'd be, you know, playing my best friend. And he was like, yeah, cool. And that's sort of how that happened.
What was the process for Billy on the Street? Like, were you coming up with like the situations?
The game ideas and then writing the games.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, one time...
And the bits, like the bit ideas. Like we have this celebrity coming, like come up with like 10 things we could maybe do with them. And then, you know, if that idea, one of those ideas is good, okay, then come up with a bunch of those like examples of things we could do.
I was walking, at the time I had two dogs. You met Piper here. I had my other dog, both of them, and he was like wandering around.
He was
literally
in Flatiron. Yeah. Flatiron was like a big,
Yeah. And I tried to get his attention, like, oh, like, what do you think of these dogs? But he was like not interested in me.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
I'm the dog person.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else about Billy on the Street when he does the one-offs now, you know.
Yes.
Like for Kamala. And
yes.
Do you have anything to do?
No, but if you ever called me to ask to pitch anything, I totally would.
Before we get into Difficult People, I'm sure maybe super fans would know this, but I don't know if people realize you wrote the Vulture recaps.
Yes.
Before Brian Moylan did. The Housewives recaps.
Yes.
And I think this may have been among your first recaps. Mm-hmm. You were recapping Real Housewives of Beverly Hills season 2 in 2011. And the title of the recap, it was the season premiere of season 2. The headline of the recap is, how do you come back from a suicide? Spoiler alert, for anybody who hasn't watched season 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Right.
And it's all about
Like
how
Taylor's husband, right?
how they dealt with Russell Armstrong's death.
Yes.
And I went and I reread your recap of that episode.
Yes.
And it was so interesting. How,
Really?
Yeah, because you're kind of breaking the fourth wall. Like, you had been to some event where people were asking Andy Cohen. This is when people were saying to Andy Cohen, you have blood on your hands.
Uh-huh.
Who knew everything that would transpire over the years since.
Right.
I know you don't watch Housewives anymore.
Yes.
But what are your observations of the Housewives / Bravo fan culture when you were a figurehead, like a voice in the zeitgeist?
Yeah.
Versus, now we're in a land of like, there's BravoCon and everybody is a podcaster recapping
Yeah.
these shows.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like a soap opera subculture when I was watching them, and now it's definitely more mainstream. But Andy Cohen, like, he's brilliant. He was onto something. He was onto something when those shows started. I was fascinated I didn't grow up watching soap operas, but I did grow up watching documentaries. I'm a big documentary fan, so I was excited at the idea of there being weekly documentaries about women who are over 40 at the time. And I was also excited about depictions of glamour that I felt had been a little bit blanched out in the 90s and early aughts when I was coming of age. And then to have more of that sort of dynasty glamour was exciting to me in that moment. And now it's gone... Now it's exploded, where with the combination of like cultural and technical developments, in addition to like filler and Botox culture, like having not it replaced plastic surgery, but supplemented it. So it's kind of warped the eye, in addition to a lot of like face tuning and technology that has made it accessible for everybody to kind of have that lip lift, that middle lip lift that you see sometimes. Not to mention like red carpet photos where like you have to be flawless. Like, people used to go to premieres in like a jean jacket over like a slip dress.
Look at any photo of Janine Garofalo at a premiere.
Or even like Bridget Fonda, like just going to, or like Julie Roberts when she was dating, whoever she was dating.
Lyle Lovett.
Before Lyle Lovett, but when she was going to like Eric Stoltz or something, when she's going to like a premiere. And you're just
I used to be obsessed with Eric Stoltz.
Did you ever see his Back to the Future footage?
No.
Well, they made the right decision. He was very handsome, though.
I loved him.
Yeah, he's really hot. He's good for he's good for redheads.
Yes.
But anyway, it became its own crazy thing, and now like I think we're in a place body positivity wise that is like completely warped. I think the combination of COVID and Ozempic like back to back is like one of the most like fucked up sauna to ice plunge moments we're going to experience, not to mention like the whiplash of like the political climate of the last decade. But I just want to watch old movies now. I just watch TCM and like and documentary. I still do love documentary, but it's very, very hard for me to watch contemporary reality without having an existential nosedive, except for Love on the Spectrum. That is the one show I can tell you like makes my heart swell.
That's cute.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful show.
When you were doing Difficult People, so that was with Hulu, how involved, like, were you noted to death?
No, we were given notes by the studio and the network, and Amy Poehler was she was a wonderful producer, and she would say like, well, we really think this is super funny, and they'd be like, okay, cool, you know what funny is, and she would give notes of her own, and her notes were great, and for the most part, we listened, but we also did this show that we wanted to do, and it was a privilege of a lifetime. Was
there anything that you had to fight for really hard and won, and also fought for really hard and lost?
Not really. I mean, it was really the show I wanted to do. I can complain about a lot of things, but I really can't complain about anything having to do with difficult people. It really felt like it's like a Make-A-Wish moment, honestly.
I mean, all the guest stars on that show, the one that pops out to me is Stockard Channing.
Yeah, she was amazing.
Anything you remember from like the day with Stockard Channing?
Everything she did. In 6 Degrees of Separation, where the fuck? You're like, Rizzo, are you crazy? It's fucking Stockard Channing. We have a legend here. But the thing is, so is Andrea Martin. So like,
yes.
Watching the two of them together is like a masterclass. I was never too starstruck because I knew that Andrea Martin was there. So Andrea being on your team, you know, there's nobody she isn't as good or better than. And just pairing her up with anyone is going to bring out the best in them. She taught me so much as a writer because as an actor, she would think of these scenes as maps and paths. And she'd point out when a line I had written sort of went off the path. And that was so helpful to me because I didn't want to sacrifice the path or like the journey or the arc of the scene for a joke. Like she would say, this line seems like she would just sort of bump on a line. And at a certain point, I realized how much she was helping me because I would rewrite in order to maintain that, taking those steps forward. And it really, really helped. Not because she was giving me a masterclass in writing as much as whenever she would bump on something, there was always a good reason. And it always encouraged me to make the scene better.
And you say that the one rule was that Julie and Billy would never fight.
Yes, there were a few rules on the show, but that was a very, very important.
What were some of the other rules?
That was a very that neither one of us could be up to something that the other didn't know about either.
Oh, okay.
That was important that there wasn't like a, you know, we'd want to do anything behind each other's back or have like a confusion plot or anything like that. But every character has its own rules. Like my mother didn't like my boyfriend. My mother liked Billy. You know, Billy's colleagues all hated him, but like some of them liked me, some of them hated me. Like just those relationships, those dynamics are part of any like show Bible. But yes, we would never fight on the show.
How did you discover Cole Escola for that role?
I knew Cole for years. I wrote the role of Matthew for Cole.
I had no idea about that.
Yes.
Because this may have been the first time I was introduced
Yes.
to Cole.
Yes. There are people that are just undeniable. So when they succeed, you're like, well, yeah, of course.
Tell me about your first WNBA game.
The one that I went to?
Yeah.
It was so great. They were so nice. They put me in the front. They like took my picture. I was like a VIP. It was so great. I was right at I was courtside, so I could watch the players. You know, when you have really good seats for a play and you're at the theater and you see the faces of the actors closer than you do when you're in the balcony, because live sports are, it's kind of just like a play, right? It's just theater. Mm-hmm. I was able to see these athletes make the decision to shoot the ball. And when they stop and they do that, their faces and bodies decide to make a move before they make that move. And I remember feeling very privileged and excited to have that view.
What brought you to the game?
Ellie the elephant, the mascot, and then the videos that Ellie would do with the team. I always liked knowing that there was a women's basketball team in New York City that was good. I knew that the Liberty were good, and I'd heard of them. And when they did a rebrand, they moved to Barclay Center, and they had these new owners, and they hired these brilliant women who came up with the mascot. They came up with like the whole branding of the team and just the whole new look. And I really loved the social media presence of this mascot, this character. It was like so well thought out. And then I thought, you know, what if I like, they started introducing the players as characters. And then I was on a basketball team a million years ago when I was a little kid. I was terrible, but I at least know the rules. I know the rules of baseball too, but I haven't gotten into baseball. It's like too boring for me. I'm sorry. But
I like baseball.
So does my friend Karina. She said she's trying to get me into it. She is setting out to get me into it. But the combination of like it being a small group of women whose faces and hair and bodies I can see, and like feeling like I can get a sense of their personalities and also knowing what was happening for the most part. All those technical fouls and things I don't really understand made it accessible. And then just like the hometown pride and then winning, that was also pretty great. I love it. And I love the WNBA and I love those women.
I have so many
Unrivaled is amazing. And there's just like a fabulous, strong women being incredible.
I know so many of my friends go in on season tickets.
I gotta figure out my season tickets. Because once you sit courtside, it's hard to go back.
I mean,
but I've sat in the stands too. But it's pretty great. And this last season, like those women, it's like your favorite cast of Saturday Night Live. You never really get over like that particular group. So to have had that be my first go around and win, forget it. It's not going to get any better than that, but it's still pretty great.
I love how you titled a recent episode of the podcast, I Think I Can Fix Death Becomes Her.
Oh, that's actually Brett, who's the producer, titled it, but I did say that on the show.
You said,
yes.
You said it. And
yes.
I so identified with the sentiment because I've said on this show before, because it's true to my life, is most often when I see something, whether it be like a movie, a TV show, a musical, a play, I often walk out and telling everyone I know how I could have cut the running time. Like I easily could have cut 30 minutes out of Wicked.
I could have cut the fucking hour and a half. Why is that 2 movies?
Thank you.
Why is that 2 movies?
So I talk about that, and something that I actually really love is talking about how I would fix a thing.
Yeah.
How I would have.
Yeah.
I mean, I like majored in this with the L word.
That's what Carrie Fisher did. Yeah, that was her job. And Elaine May, and yeah.
So you're going on and on about Death Becomes Her and how like it has all these fatal flaws.
And by the way, I will say this. I think the musical does a really great job of fixing what's wrong with the movie. The musical I saw this last week, and I really had so much fun. I think they did a really excellent job of, correcting the things that I don't like about the movie. There are things I really, really like about that movie.
I had the thought that like in 10 years, is there going to be a musical, The Substance?
10 minutes, maybe.
But it takes so long for these things to get to Broadway. If you look
Broadway, sure. But yeah, like workshops and things along the way.
But I feel like The Substance is going to be then that next IP that they're going to try
It could be. Yeah. I mean, it could be. They'd have to like write a stronger story. More stuff would have to happen. The Substance is like a very, very simple, it's almost like a pilot. I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, this is a music video. But,
it is.
What do I know?
But I bring up Death Becomes Her because this is going back to like John Waters and the idea of like these camp classics.
Yeah.
One of them is obviously She-Devil.
Well, She-Devil I think is much better than Death Becomes Her, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that it has I think that first of all, there's a female director at the helm, Susan Seidelman, who did Desperately Seeking Susan and Making Mr. Right, and like she's also a feminist icon and brilliant. She's a book that is out, and she's so She-Devil has, first of all, like a message of female positivity at the end, and that we're all part of a community of women that have been not just wronged by individual women, but by the world at large, and sort of figuring that out and helping each other is like an underlying message beneath all the fun revenge stuff. But more than anything else, it's just not like Robert Zemeckis being really excited to try out his new toys, because I think Death Becomes Her suffers from like, you can always tell what a director's interested in by what's front and center. And with Death Becomes Her, to me, it's like, this guy's interested in special effects. I don't think he's as interested in the women, because what these women can do is so much more, to me, interesting than seeing how like realistic you can make the hole in Goldie Hawn's abdomen look. Goldie Hawn is like this, American comedic treasure. Meryl Streep, it's like undeniable. She's a gift. What they can do to me is so much more fascinating than like any kind of special effect. But then there's also the violence, which kind of takes it into live action cartoon territory, which is not my favorite genre, to be honest. And that's just a taste thing. I can't defend it in court as much as just say that I prefer cat fights to be more like Dynasty, where they sort of fall into the pool. I think like there's a certain amount of like body horror violence like that detracts to me from the, you know, campy comedy of two women that are trying to one up each other and have always had jealousy issues. So I also resent that the sort of shitty schlubby guy in the center gets a happy ending. That pisses me off. She Devil, I think, is I would change like maybe like one or two things. I don't like when like the dog gets hurt. That's like a thing with me. It's like no animal being hurt is welcome in anything I see, whether it's like a comedy or a drama. I just have like certain things. But no, She Devil is a masterpiece, and Meryl Streep is playing a similar character, so it's impossible not to compare them, and they were so close together. Also, that scene with Goldie Hawn in the fat suit with the cats is so mean.
That is ridiculous. Yeah.
And it's not necessary. You really don't need to show somebody down on their luck by like, you know, falling onto these like JD Vance stereotypes about what women are like when we're not married. Like it's just such a low, it's not even low hanging fruit as much as just like, it was mean and unnecessary. So yeah, I think you can always tell when the director is interested in what's great about women. And a lot of times in that movie, I can tell that Zemeckis doesn't really care as much. But to its credit, Death Becomes Her does have Isabella Rossellini. And her performance in that is
well, you called her our
remarkable.
Our second greatest Nepo baby.
Yeah,
next
she's
to
something
Liza.
else.
Yeah.
She's something else in that. Boy, oh boy.
You're going to be hosting a screening of She Devil.
Yes, at the Roxy.
With Susan Seidelman.
Yes, I'm going to interview Susan Seidelman.
This is awesome. And this is going to be this month.
Yes.
I love that.
It's going to be great.
That's great.
We're not inviting Roseanne. She's not invited.
Right.
Yeah.
How did this happen?
I pitched to Roxy that I would do some screenings of like comedies from the early 90s and late 80s that really inspired me, because those are like these under like sort of 90-minute gems that I would rent from Blockbuster or see on cable, and that was one of them.
What's another one?
Soap Dish, but the exception of the ending, which is unfortunately very transphobic, and I wish it could be different. Mm-hmm. We did I Love You to Death, which is another Kevin Kline comedy that's really wonderful. Weekend at Bernie's I really like.
And do you always interview, like, who have been your interview guests?
I interviewed Kevin Kline and Tracy Ullman when we did I Love You to Death, and this will be the second one, so this will be Susan.
That's so great.
It's exciting.
I love that.
Yeah.
Julie Klausner, everyone subscribe to How Was Your Week.
Yeah. And
is it annoying for you? Because now, I guess perhaps the biggest change with podcasting is that podcasting is now a visual medium, unlike when you were doing it in 2011.
Yes.
How annoying is that for you?
A little annoying, but I have enough filters on my camera that I can figure it out.
And where can everybody follow you on Instagram, TikTok?
Just look at my name, just Julie Klausner, all one word.
And everybody needs to do a rewatch of Difficult People.
Sure. Yeah, that would be great. I think they're still all on Hulu. So, you know, I'm prouder of that than anything I've ever done.
It is one of the great. It is shocking that didn't last longer. Although
I think I'm pretty lucky to have gotten 3 seasons.
Do you think?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no one gets 3 seasons anymore. Or a season is like 3 episodes. I mean, Strangers with Candy had 3 seasons. And to me, that's like the gold standard. So I'm very, very lucky. And I, you know, obviously I hope to do more things, but I have nothing but gratitude for that experience. That experience was like winning the lottery.
Thank you so much. This was great. Everyone, please follow me, JessXNYC, on Instagram. Go over to the YouTube channel, Hot Takes and Deep Dives. Throw in my name. All of these interviews are available on YouTube to watch, and we will see you soon.
If you want to feel more connected to humanity and a little less alone, listen to Beautiful Anonymous. Each week, I take a phone call from one random anonymous human being. There's over 400 episodes in our back catalog. You get to feel connected to all these different people all over the world. Recent episodes include one where a lady survived a murder attempt by her own son. But then the week before that, we just talked about Star Trek. It can be anything. It's unpredictable. It's raw. It's real. Get Beautiful Anonymous wherever you listen to podcasts.